right, welcome back to the Sell That SaaS podcast. I'm your host, Will Padilla. This is episode 34. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the last episode with Morgan Ingram, and the one before that was with Johnny Holston. And the reason I mentioned that is because Johnny actually introed me to the guest of this podcast for episode 34, Dave McCarl, long time in sales, long time in software sales too, over a decade of software sales experience. And he's pretty much been in sales since he graduated from UT in 2005. So I'm going to go ahead and let Dave take it away. We had a good conversation just about some sales tactics that were honestly just sales history, what he's been up to, what he's up to now. We talked about the Latin American market, how Dave had a lot of experience selling to Latin America. I always believe it's important to know a second language, and being half Mexican, Spanish has always been my default. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for sellers if you do know a second language to make a lot more money than someone who just knows one. So with all that being said, Dave, I'm gonna let you take it away. Give yourself an intro.
Yeah.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, Will, I appreciate you having me here, man. I'm pretty excited. This is my inaugural podcast, so I'm happy it's with you, man.
First one?
First one.
All
so
right,
hopefully
let's
the
go.
first of many, right? Yeah, so as you'd mentioned, I've been in sales forever at this point. Graduated in 2005, so a little over 20 years. Going way back, and we sort of touched on this about getting into technology sales and what that path looks like. I did not have that path. I graduated from college with a microbiology degree.
Yeah.
I worked in a lab for a year, and it was just absolutely mind-numbing, right? Being in a lab for whatever 8 hours a day, no one talking to you, doing the same thing over and over again. And I was like, I got to get out of this. And so my dad had always been in sales, and it seemed like an appealing route for me. So explored, because of my microbiology background, explored pharmaceutical sales, but ended up landing a gig in kind of a completely random industry, language service providers. So won't go into it too much, but essentially these are companies that help manage translation projects for large organizations, enterprise organizations. Think medical device companies, think oil and gas, produce documentation in English. They need it in 20 different languages. They need it quickly. They need a project managed, done accurately. So they go to these types of companies. So my role there was business development, go out, find new business, large enterprise customers to use the services of this company, which has turned out to become the largest language service provider in the world at this point. I did that for about 7 years. I worked at a couple different companies, worked larger and larger territories, eventually covered the entire United States doing biz dev for these companies. But it still was just such an uninteresting grind. It was a very commodity sort of business at the time. And, I pulled the ripcord, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I got to find something else. And actually became a personal trainer for a year. So I got certified. I worked at Lifetime Fitness in Houston as a personal trainer. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Super rewarding career. Got my W-2 that year, and I made along the lines of $25,000. And I was like, all right, this isn't going to cut it.
Like, as much as I loved it here, I got to
go. And obviously, shout out to the personal trainers out there. It is a grind, and it just takes time. And eventually, you can make a very good career out of it. I'm still friends with a number of the trainers that I worked with.
Totally.
But I got lucky when I got that W-2 and was sort of freaking out. A former colleague of mine in the language service industry had called me up, and I was living in Houston at the time. As you mentioned, I went to UT, so I lived in Austin for some time. Would always
Fun city.
And this was back in 2013, right? And it was just starting to blow up as a city, really, to what it is today. But he called me and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to come be an inside sales rep at this tech company, the software company called VMware."
Yeah.
And I was like, VM who? Like, I don't know who that is, but I know nothing about tech. And he said, they don't care. They just want people with sales backgrounds. So come in and interview. And interviewed, got the job. And that's sort of the beginning of this whole trajectory of technology sales and where I am today. And from there, start off as an inside sales rep. And maybe we'll get into this, because I know a lot of your viewers are either wanting to get into tech sales or move up in tech sales, and what does that progression look like? My experience was, because I had already had 9-10 years of sales experience going into this, I knew how to be very proactive. I knew how to sort of play the game of what it takes to get in front of leadership, show leadership what they want to see. So I was able to move to outside sales in basically a year.
Okay.
From being in inside sales, which is sort of comparable nowadays to an SDR.
Sure.
So what we called ISR, inside sales rep, back then, more comparable to an SDR terminology today. But I was able to make it to an outside sales role, and that's actually what brought me out here to Phoenix.
Right.
So I took over the Phoenix territory for VMware. Did that for 5 years. Loved it. One of the things you start to learn in technology sales and probably most industries is connections are everything. I basically got my next 4 jobs because of people I knew.
Yeah.
It was an amazing career, and been able to pivot that into what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, good background.
Yeah.
What has made you stay in software sales for so long, or technology sales over a decade?
Yeah, 2 things. The obvious one, money.
Sure.
The money is good in tech sales. But more importantly, really, is just knowing that the industry isn't going anywhere. It's only going to get better, more interesting. It's ruling the world at this point, right? I mean, with AI, the sky's the limit, right? Who knows what's going to happen? There's going to be so many more opportunities in tech sales. I think a lot of people, are commenting on how AI is going to consume some of these SDR jobs or other jobs within the tech industry. Sadly, we're seeing a lot of layoffs in it. But the reality is, it's just, you're going to see an explosion of smaller tech companies coming up because it's easier to build a company now. And they're going to need experienced people.
Yep.
I think I've heard you say it on your podcast. Certainly we've talked about it, but, AI is not going to be able to replace the human element, right?
Mm-mm.
At the end of the day, people want to work with people. You can get to a certain point with automation and AI, but at the end of the day, companies are only going to be able to scale and grow their technology with human-to-human interaction, right?
I don't know if I shared this on the first call, but unfortunately, the company I used to work at, I wasn't part of the mass layoff, but they went to a full AI model.
Yeah.
So AI customer service reps, AI SDRs, and I heard it's actually not working well at all for a lot of companies that tried to do that. I feel that it's kind of the same model as when your flight gets delayed and you call American Airlines. You do not want to talk to an AI robot. You want to talk to a human that can walk you through the process. There's a human element of it where they can have some empathy, and they're like, oh, you know what? We'll get you on the next flight. Here's the details. You're good to go. You hate talking to an AI robot. And I feel like buying software isn't too much different unless it's a PLG model where it's, maybe less than a couple $100. You can just download it on the site. But if you're selling mid-market enterprise software, it's
anything
really
mildly complex, right? And that's a great
really
analogy.
hard.
Yeah. The airline situation or analogy to what it is like selling software. I mean, it's a very emotional situation, right?
Yeah.
For the buyer and seller, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot at stake in enterprise sales because you have people at a prospect, at a potential client of yours, making a decision for an entire company. And their career depends on it in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a very emotional experience, and you can't get that from an AI interaction, right?
I don't think it's going to go that far. I feel like if you're a talented sales rep who can meet the buyer where they're at and also lead them on what's typically successful and
understand those emotional triggers.
Yeah, understand those emotional triggers.
So, there's a lot of human psychology in sales, right? And, we could probably
I mean,
talk at length about
that's
how
what I was
AI
saying.
interacts with it. But
with you and your extensive experience in software sales, but also just sales in general, how has the methodology when it comes to human psychology and the way it infuses with your sales process in software sales differ from when you started an industry that was not tech?
relationships for sure. The relationship selling, because I had mentioned in the other industry that I was in, language service providers, it wasn't as it was more of a commoditized business. And when you're in tech sales, again, there's a lot more emotion involved because people's jobs are on the line. If a translation's slightly wrong or slightly delayed, many people in the company are not going to know about that, right? Whereas you adopt some sort of technical tool that's costing you 50, 100, $250,000 a year, people are going to notice if it's not working. And you have to be able to have that relationship with your champion, but also, the other people in the buying cycle. And so the psychology factor of understanding each different character in the sales process and being able to build a relationship with that person. Your relationship with your champion is going to be much more extensive than, say, it is with the CEO if the CEO has to sign off on it. But you still have to figure out how to connect with that person, that CEO, right? And so that's the psychology aspect of it. And me personally, I just really latched on to the relationship building aspect of it. Now, not to go off on too much of a tangent here, but I think that's changing a little bit. I mean, if you can build good relationships, that's a required skill that's going to be super important. But I think there's more tactics to it nowadays in sales, that especially with the technology that we have, the AI that we have, buyer intent. You can get much deeper on a customer profile than you could before. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
What skills do you feel like the younger generation, just graduating college now, should focus on to get a job? Because I get messages every week from young, 22, 23-year-olds who are like, hey, I'm trying to break into software sales. I can't. I'm having a hard time finding a job. What are the skills that they need to be focusing on?
Yeah, that's it's a good question because of there's certain skills that it takes to break in that door, to get connections. Because ultimately, I think in any job, really, you have to have some sort of connection to get through that first barrier. And so being able to network and make those connections with someone who's already in software sales, that's going to be important. So that's just the networking aspect of it, putting yourself out there, and being confident enough to put yourself out there. Kind of a story to that.
True.
The way I got my field job when I was at VMware to move out here, I had heard that the hiring manager, who was California-based, I was in Austin, in the Austin office. We had a pretty big office there. She was in town for a training. She was doing some training to her team. They'd all come to the Austin office. I found out which conference room she was in and doing this training. I was like, okay, whenever they break from their training session, I'm just going to walk in there and introduce myself.
Wow.
And she had already heard my name. My manager had already sent, my information to her, that I was interested in the role. So I see her in the conference room. I'm of the assumption that they're on lunch break. I just walk right into the conference room, right up to her and say, hey, I'm Dave. I think you'd heard, got my information from my boss. I'm interested in the role in Arizona. She's like, oh, wow. Thanks so much for introducing yourself. I really appreciate that. But we're in the middle of training right now. Do you mind coming back afterwards? We'll schedule some time when we're done here. And I look around, I'm like, oh yeah, all these people are paying attention to her right now. I literally just walked into a middle of a training session. But that's what I'm talking about, is having sort of the courage. Don't walk into a middle of a training session, obviously, but having the courage to go put yourself out there and go talk to the person who might be hiring, go track them down.
Yeah.
Not in a weird stalky sort of way, but track them down and make sure you introduce yourself in a unique way. So that's one side of it. The other side of it goes back to the relationship piece and how to build a relationship with that. Now, I didn't live through this. I'm a little bit older, right? I mean, I went to high school when we were just starting to get cell phones, right? I had my first cell phone my freshman year of college. A computer. I'm trying to remember what my first computer in college was even like, but we weren't a digital age is the point, right? And we just interacted more. We did more in-person things. That's just the way it was back then. And nowadays, I don't have kids. I have some nieces, so I kind of see how they interact with technology, how they interact with humans based on their interaction with technologies. And I think there's obviously a big difference there, but I think there's some things that, the younger generation needs to work on to be able to build those personal relationships, being in front of someone, knowing how to act in front of someone and in order in a professional setting to build those. And again, I may be speaking, I was speaking a little without all the information because I don't live it. I haven't been around the younger generation all that much.
I mean, it's just your take, right?
Yeah. And I just think that relationship aspect of it, work on those skills of building relationships. They have the technical aspect of it.
They sure do.
Right? They can see how technology applies to, various situations in life and what value it can bring. So they should be able to talk to that as they're talking to prospective customers. Here's the value of technology, but ultimately, the relationship building aspect of it.
Yeah, that's fair. Kind of a random question, but also it kind of ties into your experience. So, I talk about that importance of learning that second language. I think learning a second language 20 years ago versus today, it's still probably equally as important. AI is not going to replace that because it's still that human element. Now you can sell to different people of different origins, and there's a whole new market that you can sell to. So at what point did you transition, and where did you start selling to Latin America, and how did you get acquainted with that? I was just curious.
Yeah, for sure. We had talked a little bit about this, so I thought about it. My dare I say, obsession with Latin America started in high school, really.
What?
Growing up in Texas.
Close to the border.
Closer to the border, yeah. I grew up in Houston, but taking Spanish classes in high school, I remember watching the silly videos that they'd show. And in the videos, they'd show kids going to school in Querétaro or, Madrid or something like that. And I was like, oh, that looks so amazing. Like, I'd love to go to school there, live like that. And so I just kind of always had that seed planted in my head. And fast forward quite a bit. I started, my ex-wife was actually living in Mexico City when I met her. And so without getting too much into that story, I ended up going down there a whole lot. We got married in Mexico City. I ended up being able to get my permanent residency in Mexico because of that. Yeah. And so because of my permanent residency down there, because I hadn't spent a lot of time down there, my Spanish slowly got better. But 2 jobs ago, when I was working for this company, Delphix, I was helping build their Dell relationship. And, obviously Dell's huge in Latin America. So they put me in charge of the West Coast and Latin America. So I got to go down there in a work setting a couple of times. Yeah, it was awesome. And then, one thing I forgot to mention is what I'm doing now, right? Which is very much focused on that.
That's exactly where I was kind of leading.
Yeah. And, having done some business work down there previously, I was just obsessed with the idea of like, how do I incorporate this into my professional life? Latin America business, US business, and sort of accelerate it because, it can be difficult to get that angle in corporate America. So a buddy of mine, a former customer of mine who I had known for 10 years, up to this point, 11 years, I guess. And he's a native Spanish speaker. He's half Dominican, half Puerto Rican. We had been friends for 10 years. He ended up working for VMware as well. And VMware would send him down to Latin America because native Spanish speaker. And he ended up making quite a few connections down there. And oftentimes they would say, well, we'd love to sell into the US market. So because my role had always been on the sales side of things, he had always been on the sales engineering side of things. He came to me and said, hey, how about we get together and see if we can help some of these companies sell into the US market.
Yeah.
And so Tecton Advisors was born from that. And so that's what I'm doing now, co-founder of Tecton Advisors, COO of Tecton Advisors, which, when you're a smaller company, CEO basically just means you do everything else.
Yeah.
So, we brought our two passions together, technology and Latin America, and going down that road and starting to see some decent success with it. It's a growing company, but it's the whole idea is, again, we have these small, medium-sized tech companies in Latin America, whether it's Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, that have attempted to sell into the U.S. market. A lot of these companies have attempted it to the point where many of them have a business entity in the U.S. and just have not been able to successfully do it. Certainly not.
What's the reason they can't do it? Is that culture, language, like just a cultural difference?
It's one of the big things. Yeah, definitely. Business, in any country, really, business operates differently from one to another. But in Latin America, business operates very differently down there than it does up here. Different expectations and different timelines, right?
For sure.
Mexico, Latin American in general, tend to have a little softer timelines, right? Like
Totally.
we'll get it done right now. Okay, right now means next week, 2 weeks from now, next month, right? So that's one, is the cultural differences, and then two, financial. I mean, it's expensive to set up sales and marketing operations anywhere. But if you're used to paying Latin American prices as a Latin American company for sales, for marketing, to go out and try to do that in the U.S. market where it's going to be 3 times the cost, like it's difficult to do. We did an ROI presentation to a prospective client in Mexico City 2 weeks ago, and one of the things in the ROI calculator are the cost of roles. So like an AE role or a sales engineer role or a marketing person. And it blew their mind to see how much they'd have to pay someone in the US to do sales, right? So those are the two big things, culture and the cost. I guess part of the culture thing, though, is it's very difficult to sell when you don't have someone in market. So you put those two things together, right? Like, okay, we want to sell in the US market, so we have to have someone there.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's 3 times the price to pay someone to do that. And we don't know that person and it's risky. So that's where Tecton comes in and says, okay, you don't have to pay us as a full-time agency, full-time group, but we're going to bring all the pieces of sales, marketing, customer success together and do it at a fractional, contract timing or, as far as how much time we'll be spending. So on a fractional basis, and at a fraction of the price. So, interestingly enough, we still have to deal with the cultural aspects of it too. We're still working with Latin American companies. And so we're still figuring a lot of those things out.
But you have your co-founder who speaks fluent Spanish.
Right.
So that kind of breaks down. Then you said you can probably get by, you understand a lot.
Yeah. And I got a fire lit under me. I'm speaking at a conference in Merida, which is right outside of Cancun, about an hour outside of Cancun in the Yucatan Peninsula. It's this conference called Yucatec. So I'm giving like a 5, 10, might even be a 15-minute presentation, mostly in Spanish. I was told that it didn't have to be entirely in Spanish, but I'm going to try to get it all done in Spanish.
Let's go.
Yeah, right. So, it's been an amazing experience to bring it all together, right? My background and then the Spanish and Latin American cultural parts of it. So, yeah.
And this is me just being curious. I've been in tech sales for now 6 years, and I have used so many different technology platforms and have crazy tech stacks. I'll be transparent. I have never used a technology from Latin America, right? It's either from US, Canada, or Europe.
Right.
I mean, those are the main tech providers that I operate out of. Number one, is their tech as good? And secondly, why is there not more? We'll use Spanish tech, we'll use French tech, we'll use German, Canadian. Why isn't it that I don't see any Latin American tech?
Yeah, I can answer the first question definitively, which is it as good? Absolutely. Do you know how many companies right now are doing dev in Latin America? U.S. companies?
So many. They contract all the engineers out of Brazil. Argentina's got some sick engineers.
Not so much development, but for a long time, there's been call centers and support out of Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a contact of mine last week who runs a dev shop, and they do most of their dev out of Poland. And he said that, okay, people have figured out how good Poland is and how cheap it is, and the prices are starting to go up. So we're looking to Latin America. We're going to pivot doing all our dev in Poland to Latin America for pricing, but probably just as importantly, time zone.
Time zone's
so much easier to do business there. So yeah, the talent is there to make really good technology. One thing I will say is Latin America is a little bit behind in tech in that just how companies operate, not how they think about technology, not their skill sets, but going in and selling a technology to a company, they're a little bit further behind, 5 to 10 years, let's say. So, talking some tech terms here, DevOps as we know it in the US, right? The operations of doing development in the US and how you cycle through development cycles and do it quickly here, leveraging the DevOps framework, DevOps mentality, right? They're not so much to that point yet. They're just now getting to the DevOps framework of how to build software and do it quickly and do updates and do pushes quickly. So there's some of that, but again, that doesn't mean the technology that's being developed down there is behind. So, our targets right now, we have a cloud infrastructure company who's our actual client currently. So they're selling VMs essentially with the networking, storage, memory, backup and recovery, security, all wrapped into one. But it's not like interacting with AWS, right? It's a little bit more rudimentary than interacting with an AWS. So that's kind of a difference in that industry. We have a cybersecurity company that we're trying to onboard, and there's no gaps there. I mean, they do everything the same way a cybersecurity company here would do it for a third of the price. So very appealing, but there's a lot of cultural hangups there right now that we're working through that we'll have to work through with them. And then the third company that we've been heavily talking to is out of Argentina, and it's a software tool, so a little bit different from the other two in that their services is an actual software tool for building those DevOps pipelines. Because, as I had mentioned, that's when we think of it and bring it up is, there's that gap in the Latin American market of people who know how to build these DevOps pipelines and do it so that software can be released faster. But it's still very applicable here in the US. Yeah. And again, fraction of the price.
I mean, that's right. The last company I worked at, all of our engineers were out of Argentina or Brazil. And, their English was on point and it was easy to work with them. And from what I heard from up top, it was a third of the price.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
kind of a no-brainer. And so, definitely the skill set seems there, but I'm like, why is it that all these talented people live there, yet none of us really use that much technology from that market? And it sounds like that's kind of the goal of, your company is to be able to bridge that gap and bring that over here.
Shine some light on it. As far as VC investment goes, the market is huge down there, even from US VCs investing in Latin America. Yeah, it's big. And the three biggest are Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia, I think, or certainly Mexico and Brazil. Argentina may be in there. But yeah, the amount of money being invested in these technology companies is huge too.
Yeah. And
So.
what's would you ever get like a second place in Latin America? Like
100%. Yes.
100% where at?
Well, like I said, I spent a lot of time in Mexico City, so that's you know, I don't know where all your listeners are listening from, but you know, snowbird is a real term here. It's getting the heck out of here when it's in the summertime when it's super hot. So my snowbird plan is Mexico City right now.
It's a good spot.
It is. I've been a lot during June, July, and it's perfect. High of 85, you know, lows of 65. So, and I just absolutely love that city. Now, I've heard amazing things about Colombia. I've only ever been to Cartagena, but Bogota and Medellin are both very big tech cities. So, potentially there too.
What draws you to Mexico City? I mean, what's your favorite part about the city?
It's a huge city, so you can find a ton of stuff. Food is amazing. It's a green city. There's a lot of greenery there. Yeah, it's just super. For the most part, people are super nice. I mean, like any big city, maybe to a little bit further extent to Mexico City, just because it is so big. It has its trouble areas that you just don't go to.
Yeah.
But you know, last time I was down there was pretty much strictly for work, and my business partner and I stayed in a much more work centric area. And even then, it was just, you know, everyone's super nice. Not everyone, but most people are super nice,
A lot
right?
of Americans there, right?
There are. In the area in which we were this last time, the more business centric area, you didn't see as many.
Oh.
Only people who were there for business. Now, in the more popular areas like Condesa, like Polanco, like Roma, yeah, you're going to see a lot of international people. Americans, but really from every country.
Australians too. Yeah.
Australians, French, Italian. When I was going down there, when my wife lived down there, she literally had friends from all of those countries and Japan. So, yeah, it's a very international city, which is cool. So,
yeah, that's cool, man. I love hearing about that. I love Mexico. Man, it's just like the best. I need to get more into Latin America.
Now, remind me, have you been to Mexico City?
My sister was there last week. I've
That's
never
right.
been.
Okay.
I've just been kind of in different spots, Rosarito, Puerto Vallarta, Cancun. So like those places,
Right.
but never actually in Mexico City. I've always wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some cool interior cities. Oaxaca is amazing.
Yeah.
So super cool culture down there. Amazing food, and it's near a lot of really cool beaches. I've not been, but Puerto Escondido.
I heard that's got good surfing.
Yeah, it does. That's supposed to be super chill. Sayulita, which is, I'm gonna mess it up. I think it's either north. Obviously, it's either north or south of Puerto Vallarta, but it's in that area. Used to be sort of just a super chill surf town. Guadalajara is an amazing city too.
Yeah.
It's pretty international. A lot of industry there, but very different than Mexico City.
Yeah.
So, yeah, make it happen.
Cool.
Well,
It's cool to see. Yeah, like, hey, man, my sister said she's thinking about getting a second spot in Mexico City, just like you.
Nice.
She lives in Chicago, so she'd be opposite schedule.
Yeah.
Chicago fall and summer, Mexico City in the winter, because
Right.
Chicago's pretty gnarly. But yeah, so okay, so you have a lot of things going on with with Tecton, and just the opportunity sounds really cool. What's I don't know, like just from your perspective, like all the experience you've had, why would you recommend someone to stay in software sales? You know, I've been in for 6 years, and I've really seen my earnings continue to go up and up and up and up. And it is a gradual process. It's a grind, you know, constantly having quota every quarter. And, you know, in sales, you're kind of always only as good as what you last did for the company. What have you done for me lately? Not that they're threatening that, but it's always there. It's sales in general. But why would you say software sales specifically? And for you, like,
Yeah.
What's kept you there? Obviously the money, but you talk about like, why should someone join
Yeah.
or stay in it? Stay in it's the question.
Stay in it. I think about if I had not gotten into technology sales, my knowledge of technology would be so limited.
This is good.
But being in technology sales, if you want to succeed and stay successful in it, you have to be at the forefront of what's going on in tech, and you get to see it, you get to live it, you get to understand at a deeper level how it's changing our world, our society. I think about when I'm trying to explain these things to my parents or just the other lay people of, what does AI mean, right? That's a big one. Or, I remember trying to describe to my dad, my mom, really anyone, what a data center is, what the cloud is, right? Being able to understand that in this day and age is so important. Not just those specific things, but technology and where it's going and how it's impacting us. We have kind of a front row seat to it, and you'd mentioned, so there's that.
I've never heard it explained that way, yet that is probably the most impactful. Whenever I have any technology, I'm like, oh yeah, I can use it really easily. I'm quickly adopted on new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I tell most people who aren't in software sales, marketing, or engineers, they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'll tell them what I do for work and they'll be like, what does that, like, you just see their face go blank. But then if you're in that technology space or you're using technology daily, like a marketer or an engineer, it's within 5 seconds. Oh yeah, I know what you do. Like, it's a different language.
It really is. I'll give a quick example. A buddy of mine, so it's a father-son. The father, they're both good friends of mine. The father had been in the guiding business. He wasn't a guide, but he worked for a big guiding company for a long time, last 10 years. Got really corporate. So when I say guiding, I mean backpacking trips in like the Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
In Alaska. These cool multi-day planning everything for people. Not glamping, but planning everything for people, getting the passes and, guiding them out to these, incredible 5 days, 6 day, whatever backpacking trips. And so he'd been in that industry for 10 years. Company got really corporate. He bailed. He's starting his own. One of the things he came to me with was, I need a system to help keep track, to take payments. We used Salesforce. It was brutal. So I need a CRM, but I need more than that. So I started doing research for him, gave him some options. We had a call the other day with the leading contender for his business in this area. Platform is phenomenal, but I really dug in. I was able to really dig in on them. And I said, okay, I got some questions about data, got some questions about security, got some questions about uptime. The layperson could be getting into business with multiple partners even and never think to ask these questions. And I told him, I'm like, look, if they don't have this stuff figured out and this platform goes down, like that impacts your business. You're losing money. And he's like, oh, you're right. So I was able to get on that call in a completely unrelated business and ask specific technology questions to where the owner of the company even was like, these are good questions. You're right. I know we do this. We have a CTO, but I don't have the answers for you. So I'll get them to you. So it's things like that, to your point, being able to describe what you do to the people around you. And they're like, what? So this was a time I was able to apply those skills in something completely unrelated. So that's why, stay in technology sales, have that.
Keeps you sharp.
Keeps you sharp. What I will say though is be intentional about what you're doing when you get into it. Like understand kind of the trajectory that you want. I made that mistake early on as I was like, I'll just go where the money's at. I'll go where the people are versus kind of having a real plan of what I wanted to do and then executing on that plan. I knew I never really wanted to go into, middle management and then like sales leadership. That just didn't seem all that appealing to me, but I just didn't have a plan. So I kind of bounced around. Things work out when you sort of try to stay intentional. I ended up in a good spot, but I wish I would have been had a little bit more forethought when I got into it. Like, some people can just be salespeople forever and they'll just bounce into the new and best company and that'll work. But some people want more out of it. So think about that early on, right?
Because I've sold now for almost 9 years outside of right when I graduated college, just like you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a manager. I'm, sales rep, straight slinging software. What prevented you from wanting to go that middle manager, the sales leader route and just, continue to be a rep?
Yeah. To be a little crude about it, I just didn't, I viewed them as people who were flipping spreadsheets, giving you a hard time about your pipeline, keeping your pipeline clean, and then just pushing down unrealistic quotas, right? Again, that's crude, true to a certain extent, not entirely true. I know that, but I just didn't want to be that person. There's stories, and again, not every team, but there's stories of you're babysitting a lot of times. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I will say some interesting insight for anyone listening who's in software sales. For you, Will. So my plan then became, all right, I'm just going to go see every aspect of the business that I can. That's why I took the opportunity to go build out this Dell Alliance, this Dell partnership at this software company. It moved me out of a individual contributor role, and I started working more with sales teams on either side to build this partnership. And because I wanted to see what that was like, sitting in the middle. I ended up being more of a true channel manager over time and working with resellers. And I enjoyed doing that. Because I had the sales mentality, I knew how to connect the dots between the sales teams and the resellers and the sellers at the resellers. And so I kind of went down that path. And then the latest opportunity I had was to do that and build that program for all of North America for the last software company that I worked at. And I don't think the industry really appreciates that as much as they should.
The partnership channel?
Partnership channel, or having a bunch of different perspectives of the business. There's a lot of leaders out there that want, I just want a seller. I just want someone who's been selling for the last 8 years. You were in partnerships. I had people tell me this, right? You were in partnerships, for 3 years. So you haven't sold in a while. So you can't do this job. And on the flip side of it, well, you only managed partners for 3 years. I was like, yeah, I built the programs.
Yeah.
So you don't have enough experience. We're looking for someone with more experience. And that's why I say be intentional. Like, be.
Oh, wow. I see what you're saying about your career path.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to go. I think, more leaders at any company, especially tech sales, should want someone who is a bit of a Swiss Army knife and, has proof that they're good at all those skills, of course, versus someone who has sort of just been in a silo of sales or just a silo of partners. So again, be intentional, understand you should try to get as many different experiences as possible, but kind of have a plan, have a story around how you're going to do that. I didn't really have a story. I just was like, I'm going to go do this.
Go do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. And I have only sold, right? So I'm also like, I don't know what a partnership channel looks like. To be candid with you, we talked about this and I'll call myself out. I haven't always had the most respect or understanding for the partnerships team, right? Because
very common. It's very common.
This is all over the industry. Is because I'm so one lane focused on I've got to hit my quota, I've got to get new sales, I've got to outbound, I've got to handle these inbounds, I got to manage my pipeline. And then, this partnerships person's like, hey, put them to the partnership channel, make sure this is happening. And I'm just like, why would so-and-so give me business? Or
it's like, why would I overcomplicate this?
Right.
I'm already close to the finish line. I don't need to, I can do this myself.
But then you also think about it too, is I don't think I've ever really worked. certain companies my friends have worked at really thrived on partnerships and having other vendors connect them with the right people and, be able to onboard new software. My industry, the influencer industry, is not like that. It's
Right.
very one-dimensional. So it's always been tough for me. And I never worked for a big company that had a partnership channel. I can imagine it being very impactful. So obviously there's a whole sales element of that.
We could have a whole nother podcast on this, Will.
On partnerships.
Yeah, because that's the reason I got into it, is because I was the same. I had the same belief that you did. I had the same belief that many direct sellers had. Like, this partner person is worthless to me. When I was at
We're just
VMware,
in our own world.
yeah,
We don't know what's going on.
yeah, and I would go out and do a lot of my partnership building on my own many times. Because I knew there was value in it, but the person who was supposed to be helping me didn't seem at my company didn't seem all that valuable. And so I wanted to get into that role and prove that it is valuable and show salespeople from a seller's perspective why it's valuable. But then, to my earlier point, the larger picture from management is they didn't see it that way, which was wild to me. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, the partnerships with sellers versus it's all. So yeah, again, we could probably have an entire podcast on it.
But you were able to sell because you're a seller, so you could sell yourself, which is the most important, where I feel like they get these career partnerships people who are more so marketers, who almost are timid of the sales team.
Timid of the sales team, timid of being in front of actual customers, sitting in front of a VP of IT or whatever.
They cannot sell.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. People that I would interact with, I just would talk to them like, you can't sell.
Yeah.
But if you're a seller and you're a partnerships channel guy or girl, I'd be like, major respect. You speak the same language as me. Now we can work together.
And they exist. They definitely exist. Right. So.
I have. now I've met one.
Right.
But,
thank you. Yes.
Right. But
well, and so I'll say, like, to kind of put a period at that, is that's what has allowed me then to tackle Tecton Advisors, right? And what we're doing. We're a consultant to Latin American tech companies, but ultimately what we're doing is building a go-to-market strategy for them. And I got to be able to see it from all angles, I'm not just out there to bang out a bunch of outbounds and cold calls. I got to understand the whole ecosystem of what it's going to take to make these companies successful. So that's why I say, look, I'm not saying everyone needs to go start a go-to-market agency, but I'm saying the more perspective you have, I think the better it's going to be. To kind of come back to, I think, the original question, why stay in software sales? There's going to be just this explosion of smaller tech companies who are going to want a lean team, but still need humans, right? They can do stuff with AI, but they're still going to need humans. And if they can get a human who's seen multiple parts of the business and can act with different hats on and do it efficiently, like, that's a unicorn. That's going to be gold to these software companies, right? Like, I hired this one person. They know how partners work. They can go build partnerships with partners to help us scale, but they can sell directly to a customer too. They know how to run that whole sales cycle. They know the importance of customer success and understand getting feedback from our current customers so that we can improve our product and then, keep the whole flywheel going. So, yeah, I think that's kind of my golden nugget for you today. Is like get as big a perspective as you can. There's going to be companies out there that don't appreciate it, but that's going to change, and that's why you should stay in software sales too.
That's a good take, and I don't know where life's going to take me. I've been doing it for a while. I get married in 3 weeks, and there's
congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's always definitely more of a desire to provide and to earn, especially, God willing, we start having children, and software sales has provided me a great earning.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. That being said, I'm not going to say, yes, I'm always going to do this one thing.
Yeah.
I love to sell.
Yeah.
I love to sell. It's a passion of mine, and I could tell from you too, right? Like you could just tell that you love to sell, and you also love to have the relationship aspect, which really is sales at the end of the day.
It is, and the thing I'll add to that is problem solving too. It's a complicated problem that you have
problem solving.
Yeah.
Love, and I think that's most top sellers can look at something, and that's why I feel like I'm talking about something that happened this week, but it just sparked something. That's why I feel like a discovery call is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So many people just jump right into the demo, jump right into getting them across the line. It's like, but wait, like their problem may not be like your last call. And by assuming you're going to miss some things, and actually you could be right on just jumping to everything, and you could be right. But I just love the aspect of a discovery call because it really illuminates that person's unique challenges, unique things, and I just jump into problem solver mode of, I got you. And like, that's the best thing to say to a buyer is after they just tell you all their problems, and you can confidently say with your tool or your service, I got you.
I have a hunch you're probably this way. And the discovery call mentality should never end, right?
Never.
And like I said, I have a hunch you're calling it a discovery call, but I imagine you're probably this way throughout the entire sales cycle. If, you identified the problem in the discovery call, you are a match, but there's always, especially when you get to larger enterprise sales, it's a long sales cycle, multi-steps, multi-people. The ability to just constantly be asking questions to understand that person's world versus the world just trying to push on them.
Facts.
Right. And so the other little nugget I will give is, and I honestly just recently sort of had this revelation, is we should stop looking at cold calling like cold calling. I think the problem with, everyone hates cold calling, and I think it's because we view it as this call we have to make to a person who probably doesn't want what we want to give them, but we're going to try to force it on them anyway, and have a conversation about it. View a cold call as strictly discovery, fact-finding mission as though you're a reporter, right? And, I'm thinking about it in the context of this. It's one of the reasons I love Tecton and what we're doing is because I have to go solve this problem over and over again for our different clients. And it's the idea is for this particular product, I need to just ask, how are you guys handling this? Like, I'm just curious. Like, as a company, do you guys have this need? How are you guys handling this? And if they're like, no, we don't have that problem, maybe one other question about like, oh, you don't do so-and-so. And if they change their answer then you might have a conversation. If they hold firm, fine, call's over. Who cares?
That's what I always say. I'm not here to force you in or convince you.
Yeah.
You've just told me 3 major indicators that there is no need.
Yeah. And it's like if they hang up the phone and have to deal with the fact that they just lied to you about they do in fact have a need, well, they're going to sit there and maybe call you back. Otherwise, they didn't have the need, so don't sweat it, move on. But then think about the next call. Like, I just want to know how this company's handling this. Like, how are you handling data backup and recovery? Oh, you are? Oh, AWS has it all figured out for you? Okay. And ask, but not in a like, yeah, well, I can do it better. And I think a lot of people kind of have that mentality that they have to do it that way when they make a cold call. I know I did in the beginning. So
Me too. But now I look at it similar as you. I always tell people, look at it as a detective.
Yeah.
Right? You're just an investigative journalist. But I always tell people, like, for me, I look at a company's website, I look at, the tech stack, and I know if they have these problems, they're going to buy. I'm not calling randoms. I'm calling people that if we jumped on a call and they had certain pain points, they would buy. Because our product's an automatic solve. But they still have to have the pain points. They still have to have a desire. I have some people who are relatively novice buyers and definitely are. I know they're not ready when they say, convince me into why I should buy your software. And I immediately just say, well, look, I can't convince you into anything.
Yeah.
I said, let's go back on what you said, right? You don't have a problem here. You don't have a problem here. You don't have a problem here. We typically help people who have those problems.
Right.
You're actually okay. right? And what that does is people freak out when I do that. I'll get buyers like, no, I want you to sell me. Like, because they're so not used to it, right? And so, but then we become friends.
Yeah.
They're like, oh. And then they message me, not all the time, but as you said, right?
Yeah.
As you said, Dave, it's like, okay, maybe they actually do have those problems, but then they remember you and you were cool and you were investigative, and they shoot you an email 6 months later, say, hey, thinking about purchasing this, can we talk?
Yeah.
And those emails come in.
Right.
It's not like they don't, they come in. So I love the mentality on that. And, just to kind of close for the episode, I guess two things is like, what's a trajectory for you look like? We'll start there. What's the trajectory for, the next 10 months look like, right, for 2026? Because I don't want to go too far. I just like focusing on the year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to give you kind of a political answer on it, which means not very specific. But look, I just want to I want to get better at building go-to-market strategies. And go-to-market means different things to different people. I get that. But as I described it before, get better at building sales, be more prescriptive about it, figure out how to best use tools to do that. We have a lot of tools out there now. And to that, the marketing and advertising piece, that's changing too because of the tools we have out there, combined with customer success, and be able to build those flywheels for different companies, different tech companies, and solve those problems. I want to get really good at doing that. I want to get really good at building a business in general, which is
hard.
Yeah, it is. But going back to our love of problem solving, I mean, it's one of the ultimate problems to solve is building a business, right? So those are the two big ones, right? General things I want to do in 2026.
Nice.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
Second, easy one. How can people find you? And I guess what's the pitch in terms of how you can help?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. Tecton Advisors does have a website, tectonadvisors.com. You can email me at Tecton Advisors. It's just D as in Dave, N as in Nancy, and my last name, McCarl, at tectonadvisors.com, which has a unique spelling. TEKTONADVISERS, advisors.com. And then, I think what I can provide to people reaching out to me, that's just sort of general, that's just Dave specific, is talking through sales and marketing problems. Interestingly enough, without adding too much to this, prior to starting Tecton, I was working on building a company called Preboarded, which was a company that was going to help people who aren't in tech sales get into enterprise tech sales. And so I had the beginnings of all this curriculum being built. It was a big lift. It was tough. I had a full-time job, so it kind of dwindled. It'd be a tough market to be in right now to build a company that gets people into tech sales, only because of how many people are unfortunately getting laid off and stuff.
It's crazy.
But my point is that I've had the passion of working with people and, walking them through what technology sales entails, what it means, what the different roles are, sort of strategize around being intentional with your career. So if you want to talk through that, that's something I'm happy to do. But yeah, in general, right now, just a sounding board to all things go to market and getting into tech sales. That's one of the reasons I was so honored and happy to be on here.
I'm grateful too. Yeah, it's been a great conversation. I mean, I'd say for anyone listening, feel free to reach out to Dave, and don't be surprised, Dave, if people do. A lot of my guests, they get LinkedIn messages and they get, hey, I saw you on so-and-so's podcast. So
I connected with Morgan 2 days ago.
He's a great guy. Great guy. Shout out to Morgan, Phoenix local. We'll have to get together, man. It's I got together with Johnny last week for lunch, and Johnny and Morgan. Yeah. So we'll have to get it going, man, especially with the connection to Johnny. Such a great guy. there's such a good sales community out here in Phoenix.
Yeah,
Strong.
absolutely.
And a lot of guys who really, guys and girls who really know what they're doing when it comes to sales processes. And last thing I'll say is episode 34, as Dave was alluding to, go-to-market tools. This episode is sponsored by ZoomInfo. In my opinion, the leading go-to-market intelligence tool that you can get. Their AI Copilot's amazing. Check it out, guys. It's got amazing contact data, phone data as well. So as much as you can prospect on it, you can also reach out to the prospects right from the platform. And it's got everything you need as far as go-to-market. And in regards to what's next, I'm getting married. So this will probably be the last episode that will air before my marriage. So probably a little bit of a pause, but I might be able to sneak an episode in and just schedule it the week of the wedding. But everything's kind of coming up in my personal life. Super grateful, super excited.
It's all right. You can just let this one marinate. Enjoy your wedding, Will.
No, it's gonna drop in 2 weeks. It's I'm excited to show everyone this one and for them to connect with you.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
definitely appreciate your take on sales and Latin America market, and just the passion you have for relationship building and being intentional. And I would think we could actually do a whole episode on partnerships in the coming months, because I don't think a lot of people actually know how valuable that channel is, and you could put some respect on the
For
partnership
sure.
channel.
I would love that. I'm happy to do it.
Amazing. All right, guys, episode 34 in the books. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Will.